CMD of Prestige Estates, and Pratik Jain from PwC India now joining us. Gentlemen, good morning. Mr. Razack, first to you. Combined effect of GST and RERA, do you see near-term headwinds for the sector, or do you think larger players are actually best equipped right now?
No, see, now these are brand new laws that are coming, are going to come in, especially GSTs from July. RERA is already in place, but of course the rules in many states that we operate in is still not in place. Having said that, anything new, any change that happens also takes time for people to understand, for people to adapt, and people to also completely comply with. So it will create a bit of a confusion amongst the minds of the consumer. It will create confusion in the minds of the developers themselves. So there will be a bit of a churn for a few weeks or maybe a few months. After that, I think things should completely stabilize. And we ourselves are still in grips to know what is the type of savings that we can get. I mean, everybody is talking about some savings that we could get from the GST coming in as far as the inputs are concerned. But what we do know is that the rate of tax is 12%, and the unfortunate part is it's 12% including land. Now the consumer has to pay the GST not only on the construction part but also on the land, which hitherto he was not, and he's also paying the stamp duty. But the government in turn is saying that there will be a lot of savings that will come, and these need to get sort of quantified and need to get sort of negated. We are also evaluating it. It's just early times and we are working on it. We also need to see that these so-called savings that we are anticipating get passed on to us, so that we also can do the workings. But what we've historically seen, that as developers we've always been hit with cost overruns.
Mr. Razack, you know, I just want to know whether for a consumer, are houses going to be higher because of taxes? I mean, is there a simple yes or no for that, sir?
No, I don't think it's so simple for me to simply say the prices will go up or prices will go down. I'll be wrong, because honestly, we don't know. Oh. And it's only time will tell what the difference is. But if you ask someone who's like a spectator, not in the thick of things, it could be either way. But the common sense tells me that in case the input cost goes up, the price will have to go up. If input cost goes down, price naturally will get corrected. But then looking at all the other various factors, all the other compliances, we really don't know. Right now, I would say let's go with the view that it would be neutral. I don't want to scare somebody by saying, listen, price will go up, so buy today. Or I don't want to say price will go down, don't buy today.
So we'll ask that question to an outsider.
We look at it as it's going to be neutral.
Okay, let's get the tax expert in. Maybe he has a different view. Pratik, there are a lot of eager viewers out there who just want to know. They have under construction houses where they have paid the bulk of their EMIs and are awaiting, occupation certificate or whatever, the completion of the house. Do taxes go up for them? And separately, if you are going to buy a house, will it be more expensive in the GST regime?
Yeah, so let me just explain how the taxes will work on a GST on real estate. So stamp duty continues as it is. That is not getting subsumed under GST. Today, for real estate, there is a 4.5% service tax that I pay. I usually pay 1 to 2% VAT, but I don't get input credits. Okay, so input credits we have estimated for let's say a project which is around 4,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees per square feet. Input credit loss today is around 4 to 5%. So effectively, if you add all of that, then you end up at the current effective rate of around 10%. Okay. Now it is becoming now 12%. So there is a marginal impact there. Now it is also contingent upon the fact that how much benefit can I extract out of the vendor, right? So I'm buying cement, I'm buying other things. So how much benefit can I extract out of the vendor to reduce or to bridge this gap of 2%? So our sense is that for projects which are not, let's say mid-value kind of a thing, around 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 kind of a thing, largely it should be neutral. Okay. But as you go up and you talk about the high-end projects, which is, let's say, 20,000, 25,000 rupees per square feet, there the value of land is much higher than the value of material on which you'll get benefit. So there the prices could go up a bit because the effective tax rate would increase significantly. But one other very important point where industry has represented the government is on the existing projects. So, if the existing project is, let's say, 70% complete, I have already used all the inputs, so I don't get any input credit to the extent of 70%. I'll only get input credit for material that I buy from 1st of July, right? But suppose there is a buyer who walks in today, he has to pay 12% on the entire 100% value, okay? So what we're fearing is that existing projects where bulk of the construction is already complete and the buyer is coming in now, the prices could go up unless there is a relief which is provided by the government for the existing projects. So that's something which I definitely think government
is that for a new buyer, Pratik?
The other way of providing relief for the... Yeah.
Pratik, will that be for a new buyer? Because I think bulk of our viewers will be existing buyers who have not got a flat yet. And not someone who will go and sign a check now.
So even for existing... Correct. So even for existing buyers, to the extent of EMIs that I'm going to pay after 1st July, I'll have to pay GST of 12%, okay, right? As opposed to, let's say, a 4.5% service tax and 5.5 including VAT, right? So there the effective tax rate goes up. Now, obviously, whatever material the developer is purchasing after 1st July, they will get a credit also, okay? But since a bulk of the project is already complete, the set-off may not be sufficient to offset the entire increment of 6% tax, right? So in that case, where the construction is completed, substantially, you might have an increased tax rate, and that's what I think the consumers are worried about as of now.
How receptive, Pratik, is the government to listening in to the builders' plea that at least for existing projects, they should continue paying the old tax rates? Are we likely to see the relief for existing projects?
See, government around a week back came up with a circular saying that the builder should pass on the benefit to the consumers, and rightly so. And I think, I'm sure the industry would stand up and say that, we will pass on. The problem with the existing project is that I don't have that input credit to pass on because the the material and all that has already been, is part of the project. So there are, either you allow the existing, so either you allow some kind of a deemed credit, like which is available for traders for stock in hand, to say, okay, fine, you pay 12%, but you'll also get a deemed credit of, let's say, 4 or 5%. Then that will be useful. Otherwise, the existing projects, the prices could go up, and I think industry is making representation to the government. Very difficult to say whether that'll be heard or not. But definitely they have a case to make.
Mr. Razack, as the industry, the real estate industry, grapples with all the new laws that have come through, in the first 3 months of this financial year, April, May and June, have we seen a slowdown in launches by real estate companies? And secondly, in terms of even the value of properties sold, has there been a slowdown? And if you could give us some numbers to indicate how it's been for your company.
Yeah, see now, since the real estate bill kicked in on May 1st, and since the many state governments that we work with have not passed on their rules, and the law very clearly says that we cannot launch a new project without registration. So obviously there have been no new launches. May and June have had no launches. April, obviously many people would not have done because they would like to know what the new law is going to be all about. Hence, the first quarter has actually dried up with new launches. There's nothing new that the consumer has that he or she can buy. And obviously, as we go on, with all these things, it's just common sense tells us this is going to create a shortage, and the supply is going to get sucked in. And once supply gets sucked in, there is going to be a little upward movement on the pricing. I wouldn't want the pricing to go up because ultimately it's all about affordability, and at the end of the day, how much a consumer can afford to buy a product at. So it's counterproductive to even increase prices. We are trying to see how we can stabilize this, how we can manage and balance this, including the new GST. We've heard our expert on GST talk about it. And I think all of this is a lot of churn. There's going to be a lot of confusion also amongst the buyers. And but at the end of the day, water will find its level, things will stabilize. It's only since any change that happens has to be understood. We have to grapple with it. We have to seriously try and implement it and accept it also. And moment there is acceptability and implementation happens sincerely, I think things will fall in place. Yes, no doubt there will be that short-term pain, but I think the short-term pain is for long-term gain.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Mr. Razack and Pratik Jain, thank you very much for joining us. So the incremental point is that there aren't enough sales or launches now because people are in a state of bewilderment as to how things will pan out. And going forward, there is going to be a slight uptick in prices as well because of GST. That doesn't look like very good news. Okay, do remember to tune in as well to our GST Town Hall with Revenue Secretary Hasmukh Adia, where you can catch head honchos of India Inc. putting forth their views as well as their concerns and questions on GST and the government responding to India Inc.'s questions this evening at 6 p.m. on CNBC TV 18. Okay, we'll take a break, but we are going to stay with the GST theme that's uppermost in the mind.